It's Monday night, and you know what that means. Jersey First brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk right here on Facebook Live via StreamYard and also on the Jersey First YouTube. I want to thank you all for joining us here on this Valentine's Day edition of the program, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, I'm rocking red for all the Valentines out there, for all the couples celebrating. Certainly, thank you for making this a part of your Monday night viewing before you head out to your Valentine's Day dinner. And of course, sending out a happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there who I love very much, from my mom to my aunt, the Valentines in my life, to my best friend as well. She deserves a lot of love here today. And to everyone out there, folks, Valentine's Day isn't just about the couples. It's about sending love to everyone out there that's important to you. So take a moment to do that if you haven't done so already. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you know I am New Jersey's premier journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, and of course, the sworn enemy of all the latte liberals, social justice clowns, toxic progressives, and all the woke fools throughout the state of New Jersey. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, standing up against all of them. I want to thank you all again for tuning in here from wherever and however you may be doing so. Again, I'm rocking red for Valentine's Day, but of course, folks, I'm also rocking red. Let me have a little sip of my victory tea for my Rutgers men's basketball, who's just, you know what? Another ranked team, another win. So who wants to smoke right now in the Big Ten? I don't know, but nobody wants a piece of Rutgers University right now. Let me have a little tea about that. That tastes really, really good here as we are getting close to March Madness, folks. And the Rutgers men's basketball team is making their case to head to the big dance coming up in the month of March. But you know what? And of course, ladies and gentlemen, hope you all had a wonderful Super Bowl weekend as well. Got to enjoy Super Bowl 56 yesterday. A great game altogether. Some good commercials. And I got to relive a little bit of my youth with that outstanding Pepsi halftime show with Dr. Dre and Mary J. Blige, along with Snoop Dogg. I don't know about you, but I was listening to that playlist all morning long on my commute to work today. So again, folks, a lot to celebrate here. And of course, you know, unfortunately, football, the NFL is going to be on break until September, but politics never takes a break here on the show. And certainly I'll continue bringing you, again, in partnership with Jersey First, the best guests, the best dialogue, and the best conversations about what's going on in New Jersey politics. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, this week is no exception. Joining me here on Real Talk is the distinguished councilman out of the township of Parsippany, Troy Hills, my good friend and fellow conservative, Justin Musella, joins us here tonight on Real Talk. Councilman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Fernando. It's great to be back. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, listen, Justin, I'll tell you right now, I'm so happy for you. I, along with Elizabeth Nader, the host of the Nader Narrative right here on Jersey First, were really the only journalists that spoke to you last year during your campaign. You ran a very, very passionate campaign, going door to door, really rolling up your sleeves, cutting your teeth, as they say in the world of campaigning. And listen, I got a lot of free dinners coming my way because of predictions last year. And one of them was you. And I was one of the few journalists, again, to endorse you last year. And I'm so happy that you got elected. I know it sounds a little partisan, but I don't care. It's my show. I can say whatever I want. But congratulations to you. And certainly we'll get to what the campaign entailed in just a moment. But again, it's 2022. Took the oath of office at the beginning of January. What's life like on the township council?
Well, first, I really appreciate you making a bet on me. And I hope that your friends let you pick the place and they pay for it.
I might go to Parsippany. I might just, I might bring my business to Parsippany and hit one of the great restaurants there in the township of Parsippany, Troy Hills.
You can do a lot of damage to them at Capitol Grill. I would recommend that.
Okay. Okay. So what's life been like for you? I mean, again, it's such a whirlwind few months for you, obviously getting elected. You really, again, you were such an inspirational candidate, in my opinion. And a lot of the mainstream liberal media in New Jersey, what else is new, didn't really give you any attention. I thought, A, that's typical of the liberal media here in the state of New Jersey. But B, I think it's a testament to, don't underestimate lively grassroots campaigns. And I think in a nutshell, that's what you represented, Justin, in 2021. Is that fair to say?
Well, I really, appreciate the kind words that you have, Fernando. I see myself more as a vessel for a lot of other people who worked really hard behind the scenes. First and foremost, the fact that I had a great mayoral candidate to run with, Jamie Barbario, and then my council running mate, Frank Neglia. We were a great team. We also had great support from the Republican club and the committee in town, along with our chair, Laura Ali. And then we were very fortunate to have our message be received by both the Tap Into and the Parsippany Focus. So we made every effort to get our message out there through op-eds, letters to the editor, and just by the sheer tenacity of having to work extremely hard and together, which was an important thing when hard work comes with the fact that you have a lot of great people supporting you, helping you, and in the trenches, because Parsippany was a battleground town. It's a town where the Democrats are on parity with Republicans. Independents decide the election here. So I think it's a really good read on the state of New Jersey as well, since you have both parties that from the state level and on down do everything possible to retain control of the town. So it went from a Democrat-controlled town to now a fully controlled Republican town.
That seems to be what happens, I think, maybe in every election cycle, Justin. It almost seems like that's the narrative going around as it pertains to not just state government, right, but even local. And when we talk about a town like Parsippany, again, listen, I live in deeply blue Hudson County. I mean, it is as blue as Windex, okay, here in Hudson County. That's not the case out by you. Obviously, that part of Morris County, if I'm not mistaken, has always been traditionally very Republican leaning, very conservative. I think that in recent years, we have seen what the state Democratic Committee has tried to do in different counties and districts and municipalities. Morris County is no different. We know that it's become a little bluer or maybe even purple. And certainly when we look at a township like Parsippany-Troy Hills, that is certainly the case. And we are seeing that, Democrats do a great job of mobilizing and registering voters and everything else. But when it comes to governing, when it comes to policy prescriptions, listen, I think we all know, and we'll dissect that in a little bit, how it's very flawed. Part of my intro, when I sort of poke fun at the left, is not by accident, Justin. I mean, there's a reason behind it. I don't just do it as a political scientist, but I also do it as a journalist, because I'm a lifelong Jersey resident, as are you. I know you lived in, down by Emory when you went for your undergrad down in Georgia, but, you're a lifelong Jersey resident. You've seen what solid Democratic control has done to the Garden State for decades. We've seen it in the state legislature. We've seen it in local municipalities. What do you think was the tipping point in Parsippany, for example, a campaign like yours, to come along and say, you know what, hey, it's leaned Democrat for some time. It's not being governed well. It's perhaps maybe a mess, if I can be frank here. What did you do when you knocked on doors? How were you able to sell your campaign to undecided voters who maybe were either turned off by the local government or had just been turned off by politics altogether?
Sure. That's a great question. So we ran on three things. The first thing was stopping the overtaxation of residents that came, particularly last year, 40% increase in their water utility bill in the middle of COVID, which had a devastating effect on all residents. So that was a key issue in Parsippany. And number two is the overdevelopment. Stopping the overdevelopment, particularly the bad type of development, such as the ones that come from the Mount Laurel doctrine, the affordable housing that is shoved down a municipality's throat, and it guts the character of the town because it forces them to put up these massive multi-dwelling unit complexes, and there's nothing that the town can do about it. And it's something that resonates with all people, because Democrats and even environmentalists are upset at the fact that you have these massive apartment complexes that come up in the suburbs, and the suburbs are compelled by state law to comply. And it's something that's affecting our town deeply as we speak. So that was a really important issue. And then the last issue was ending the mismanagement. Under the last 4 years, you had Parsippany in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. You had a lot of turnover from key positions at town hall that were instrumental at ensuring that the town was well run. And the people in town, as we spoke to them, they thought, you know what, there is something wrong here deeply. There's something wrong with the fact that we're being asked to pay more and we're getting less. We have our town being developed and going from a township to what might be like a city when all of these apartment complexes come online. And they didn't like the fact that their township was making headlines for all of the wrong reasons, for the fact that our mayor at the time, it took him almost a year to propose a budget that was acceptable. And many people thought that there needs to be some serious change. So I, along with my running mates, we stuck to those three issues. We knocked on thousands of doors, preaching a very simple message, talking about what our plans were. And to date, we're sticking by those.
Well, Justin, again, it's a campaign that just deserves to be admired for the tenacity and the perseverance. And really, that's what it takes when you're doing something like that, especially against incumbents. And we all know how Democrats are able to mobilize in any election. We saw that last November, but we also saw, thankfully, Republicans mobilize as well. We saw some gains in the state legislature, and we also saw gains in local municipal government. Yours is an example, and I think it's refreshing to see that conservative ideas, especially along economic lines, make sense. And I'm someone that is a staunch fiscal conservative. I know we talked about that when you appeared on my podcast. I believe last September, if I'm not mistaken, right around almost, kind of like towards the finish line for your campaign. And I'm one of those fiscal conservatives where, hey, listen, I just want things that make sense. And it seems that whether it's Democrats in the township of Parsippany or Democrats in Trenton, A, they've never met a tax that they don't like. B, they don't understand what budgeting is. And it's kind of sad because like some of these people like actually have like economics degrees from 4-year colleges and universities. It makes me wonder, like, what the hell were you doing for 4 years when you were studying supposedly economics? And C, I think also it's the idea that, within a municipality, listen, everyone, when we think about Parsippany, Justin, again, coming from Hudson County, you look at a township like Parsippany, and it's a town that pretty much kind of, exemplifies money. Okay. It's kind of a, uppity, if I could be so bold, kind of upper class type of demographic that dwells in Parsippany. Okay. It's an affluent township for the most part. Again, compared to Hudson County where I live, Parsippany is like, the Mecca almost, right? When you think about suburban life and how great it is to live there. I've been to Parsippany many times, but when we see it at the local level, especially when you talk about mismanagement, it's alarming. And I'm just glad to see that residents got out there and voted, because it's easy to be apathetic in this political climate where people just get turned off by politics by both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. And I think what, makes Parsippany unique, and much like the state of New Jersey, it has something for everybody. You have if you come to Parsippany, you'll know that we have a lot of different parts of town that have their own unique character and flavor. We have a tremendous variety in the amount of people that live here, and 30% of our population is foreign born. And that was one area in particular where we were able to make a lot of inroads with, mobilizing and activating a lot of the Indian American residents in town and getting them to the polls, because even they were saying we're paying more, we're getting less, and this culture needs to end, compounded with the fact that you have the mandates coming from Trenton, from mask mandates to CRT. And it was just a perfect storm for us to mobilize people and ensure that on election day, it was packed to the gills with our voters. So, now that we have a unique opportunity to govern and to show what happens when we implement Republican ideas and solutions, I think is how you really peel back that apathy. Because apathy comes from when people vote for other people and they see the moment they get into office, they don't rise above the status quo, and they push on with big and bold initiatives that keep the people who voted for them in under their tent. So that's something that I know we plan on doing in Parsippany, and that would be the same message I would encourage every other person that got elected or got reelected to office is you can rise above the status quo and deliver on what you told people you plan to do.
Oh, well said there, Councilman. Well said. Folks, it's 6:15 here on the East Coast. And if you're just joining us live, hey, don't go anywhere. A special Valentine's Day edition of Real Talk here coming your way with Parsippany-Troy Hills Councilman Justin Musella here in partnership with Jersey First. Folks, don't forget to check out their excellent content at jerseyfirst.org. That's Jersey, the number one, ST.org. Make sure you like Jersey First on Facebook. And, of course, follow Jersey First on both Instagram and Twitter. And again, Councilman Musella joins us here this evening. And folks, keep the comments coming here on Facebook Live via StreamYard, of course, also on YouTube, streaming via the Jersey First YouTube page. Councilman, let's move on to, let's be honest. The easy part is what you went through last year, campaigning, knocking on doors, rolling up your sleeves in the rain, the sun, whatever, day, night, weeknights, weekends. Hate to tell you, man, but that was the easy part. Now it's time to govern. Now it's time to legislate, which is the body, again, that is responsible for that in the town council. So as 2022, again, we're just a couple months in, what are you looking to accomplish in your term on the town council? I know you talked about what your platform consists of and what you ran on, and certainly it resonated with voters, is what got you elected. But now, again, it's the hard part. It's legislating. It's getting to work. It's looking at the town budget. It's looking at what fat we need to cut out. And God knows in every municipal budget, there's so much fat. I'll tell you, a hungry dog will be salivating just looking at it in terms of what a dog could stick their teeth into here. There's a lot of fat in this budget. Do you care to comment on anything you really want to focus on as the municipal budget obviously is still underway?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. In our form of government, the mayor proposes the budget. So I don't have any insight yet as to what the mayor will propose, but I have every single confidence in him that he'll propose a budget that is as lean and efficient as possible for a municipality of our size. But what I can comment on is some of the things that we are doing to make Parsippany a place that people want to come live, work, and play, and most importantly, establish a business. And when it comes to the economic development, that smart development that municipalities need to have, right now, Parsippany, we have 15 million square feet of office space. And we're one of the largest corporate centers in New Jersey. And unfortunately, 2 million square feet of that is currently vacant. So wow. That's, and it's something that is for par for the course in many other municipalities, because let's face it, the regulations, the overtaxation on businesses in this hostile climate to free enterprise is driving the people that own those businesses down to the south. That's a demographic reality this state faces. So while there's little I can do at the state level, what I can focus on is at the local level, and that's ensuring that we have a robust and active economic development committee that we're in the process of reforming, that has key stakeholders who know exactly what type of local regulations and permits and unnecessary hurdles that they have to jump through that might be a barrier to entry for businesses in other municipalities. That's a top focus, because if we can't fill the vacant office space, then we have to smartly redevelop it in a way that has minimal third-party effects on the township. So that's definitely a key focus of ours. A second one, which has really been an easy fix, is just making myself more accessible to local constituents. One of the things that I took the initiative in was a campaign promise, was having office hours, which is something I'm doing monthly. So every single month I post publicly where residents can find me. And to date, they've been a success. We have people coming who have had issues that they haven't been able to get any resolution on. And it's that type of style of intense communication with my residents and my constituents, which is really important to me. So on the overall, it's about working together in harmony and ensuring that we have a productive town council that supports our mayor to do the big things possible to bring prosperity back to our town.
Councilman, I love the idea of office hours. I know how time consuming that can be. Again, as an academic, I know it fully well. But again, in your capacity as a municipal legislator, it's so crucial, I would argue, to make sure that your constituents can go see you. Oftentimes in any municipality, maybe seeing a mayor can be almost impossible. Not where I come from here in Union City. My mayor is also my state senator. He never sleeps. That's always the case. And we know that when it comes to different districts and different counties, government operates differently from each other. It's as simple as that. So it's refreshing to hear, obviously, that you're looking to, again, roll up your sleeves, be out in the community, and make sure your constituents can get in touch with you. And, a point you mentioned before that, as I'm taking notes here, you mentioned about development. And I think that's a problem that's just statewide. I mean, listen, where I live up here in Hudson County, I walk 3 blocks, I see Manhattan. Okay. So we all know what development looks like here. Okay. It's an attractive yet overly expensive destination in New Jersey, but it's not the only place to live. And of course, in a wonderful suburb like Parsippany, people want to move out there. It's not just a great town to live and shop in. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm auditioning to work for the Chamber of Commerce in the town of Parsippany, but that's true. But like anywhere else in New Jersey, it's that overdevelopment. It's trying to make a nice suburban town too densely populated. I mean, we don't need that. And I think that's what, arguably, is Morris County's largest municipality. That's the last thing I think anyone wants to see in the township itself. Now, again, in your capacity on the town council, what remedies do you think you're going to have at your disposal? Is it something that just is inevitable, or is it about standing up to developers and saying, hey, listen, we know this is really premium land. We get it. It's prime real estate, as the acronym goes. But at the same time, let's have a little pause. Let's have a little prudence here when it comes to development. Is that something that you and your fellow council members are going to be able to do? Or again, is it just that inevitable certainty that is part of real estate here in New Jersey?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors. I always favor the free market approach when it comes to any problem. So if it's a development, I look to the free market when it is time to look for solutions. And as I had alluded to earlier, it's the mandates that kill the municipalities, because when it comes to affordable housing, which is really the bulk of that bad type of development, because it's unplanned, it's unaccountable because you can't help for it. And the fact that when these developers come in, they're pursuing their own natural self-interest to develop and put up an apartment complex, so you can't fault them, which is why you would put so much more power back in the destiny of a local municipality if you rolled back these state mandates. But when we're talking about what we can do at the local level, from my experience, I find that most developers do want to work with the municipality. They want it to be a happy marriage, and they recognize that they need municipal support to get a lot of their projects done. And what I find is that the municipality has the most amount of bargaining power before that shovel is in the ground. Because once the shovel is in the ground, that project it's very hard to negotiate and say, well, if you're going to develop, then you're going to have to chip in for the new renovations our schools need as a result of the kids that are going to come into the school district. And I think the communication is a key aspect of that, in ensuring that if developers are going to come in to the town, they need to know what to expect from the administration, just as we need to know what to expect from them.
No, fair enough, Councilman. Folks, it's 6:24 here. Appreciate you tuning in here to Real Talk via Jersey First. Again, check them out at jerseyfirst.org. Certainly, Councilman Justin Musella here, live on this Valentine's Day edition of Real Talk, as we continue here for the next, actually until the top of the hour, here 7 Eastern time. Councilman, we'll get back to Parsippany in a moment, but let me run some Republican Party talking points here for our discussion. And a good article today by one of my good friends, fellow journalist Fred Snowflake. Coincidentally, will be on Real Talk in the month of March. So I'm looking forward to his appearance. Pretty interesting article here. One of the few journalists I can tolerate at Insider NJ that doesn't put me to sleep when they post their columns, obviously. But, it sort of paints you in a light as a rising star in the Republican Party. Again, some people called your win last November an upset. I didn't think so. But again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But the bottom line is there's this perception out there that you are a rising star in the Republican Party, not just in Morris County, but really statewide. You're a name that is growing in serious political capital. So when you hear compliments like that, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel like if I lost, I would have been a crush star. So that's an important consideration. And when it comes to Fred Snowflake, who I know very well, and I do respect, he's a great journalist. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday to
Happy birthday, Freddie. Again, one of the few journalists I can tolerate there at Insider NJ.
Yeah, and so things like that, they don't really mean much to me, because when I was running, I knew that the deck was stacked against us. We were outspent, we were outgunned, we were outmobilized, but we weren't outworked. And you had alluded to it before. Fortunately, I have a great fiance, my Valentine Courtney, who I'd love to give a shout out to. Stood by my side when I ran in both the primary and the general.
Justin, by the way, I'm sorry, Justin, real quick. Courtney, my apologies. I know I'm taking some time away from the Valentine's Day date and dinner. My bad. Trust me, we'll be off in a little while, all right? So my apologies to her there. I'm sorry, Councilman.
That just shows you how committed she is. She gave me permission to be on here.
There you go.
So the role of running for office is simply the hardest thing I ever did in my entire life, because it was relentless. For starters, I had an extremely competitive primary where I started as essentially a no name, and I ran on a different slate than the slate that ended up emerging victorious. So that was something that I owe in large part to the fact that I had a great amount of support that I'm very blessed to still have. And then as we moved into the general election, the Achilles heel and Parsippany of the Republicans had always been the infighting. And as you'll see in Snowflake's article, he referenced that there was harmony at the fundraiser, since Lou Valori, who ran against Mayor Barbario in the primary, they came together. We all worked as a team, and the outcome of that was we emerged victorious. We had everything going in the right direction. But insofar as rising star, I prefer to see other people rise along with me. In Morris County, we have some other great people like Joe Bach in Boonton. We have Ashley Felice in Chatham, who, when you talk about rising stars, went from a councilwoman in a heavily Democratic area as Chatham Township, and now is mayor in the span of 2 years. So it's great to have inspiration all throughout the county, because ultimately I don't have the answers to everything. So having that support from people who are in my generation and having them pave the way for me was something that was really humbling and gratifying.
It certainly was, Councilman. Again, a shout out to the birthday boy there, Fred Snowflake. Great column. If you haven't checked that out, folks, on InsiderNJ.com, do so after the broadcast today. I think it's pretty insightful, to say the least. Couple quotes here I want to get your thoughts on, when obviously, looking at the perception of your candidacy last year, looking at, for example, Laura Ali, the county chair. How significant was her role in helping your campaign, or is that something that was a work in progress, Councilman?
Very, very significant. So I would say she deserves as much as the win as all the people that ran. She was in the trenches with us, helping fundraising, with events, with recruiting volunteers to come to Parsippany and door knock. So without her support, a win for all of us would have been very unlikely.
Certainly. And we know that Republicans are going to always be behind the eight ball anyway, as we've seen in a state where, last November, we saw a Democrat governor be reelected for the first time in almost 50 years. I mean, obviously before my lifetime, yours. And believe it or not, Justin, I mean, and I sort of want to talk a little bit about what last November represented, not just your campaign, but I think for Republicans in general. I went on record. I was the only journalist. And again, some people killed me for this, but because, and again, I'll explain my rationale, but I called a 3-point to 4-point win for Governor Murphy last year. Everyone laughed at me. Everyone said, Fernando, you're crazy. The polls say otherwise. This is madness. I said, listen, I understand Republicans are behind the 8 ball. Democrats have these variables in their favor. A, they have more than 1.5 million registered Democrats on the voter roll. B, by and large, statewide, Democratic machines, I mean, the party apparatus tends to mobilize well. Okay, here in Hudson County, next door in Bergen County, down south in Essex, Middlesex, whatever. I thought that because of those variables, and I knew that there were pockets of the state that were unhappy with the governor, and rightfully so, right? It almost seemed like he was the emperor at some point with these mandates, with the way that he handled COVID, right? In what I argued what should have been a regional approach to COVID, as opposed to the one-size-fits-all approach, which he took, and coincidentally every other blue governor did as well, and it killed New Jersey businesses. It arguably killed people in nursing homes, okay? It ultimately really just demoralized New Jerseyans overall. Last November, Jack came within, again, a few points of upsetting him, okay? But I thought that because of the variables I just explained, that the governor would win re-election, and he did. Again, I was rooting for Jack. I'm not going to lie about it, but I was the only one that called that race. What I also called was the fact that Republicans were going to make gains in the legislature, and they will make gains in municipal races, again, vis-a-vis your race, for example. And it just seems, I think it's a reminder that the New Jersey Republican Party, and again, last week I had Chris Russell on. I'm not sure if you caught that episode. I'll forgive you. You're a very busy man, so I won't hold it against you, Councilman. But it was a pretty interesting conversation with Chris Russell. And we sort of talked about what went right for Republicans, but also what went wrong statewide and even, locally as well. And I'll keep saying this, Justin. Again, I'm not trying to take a shot at Bob Hugin, okay, the state chair, but Republicans have a lot of work to do when it comes to mobilizing, when it comes to outreach, because these are the facts. And this might make some people uncomfortable, okay? Now, I'm not saying this because I'm the last person, you follow my social media, Councilman, I'm the last one to ever invoke identity politics into my rhetoric. But there's a reality, and the census told us this. New Jersey is getting browner. Okay? It's not getting blacker. It's not getting whiter. It's getting browner. And Hispanics and brown people collectively are a demographic that Republicans need to maximize. Because when it comes to conservative values, when it comes to conservative economic principles, when it comes to not subscribing to woke nonsense, okay, people in New Jersey, by and large, independents and Republicans alike, okay, I don't care how this sounds. I don't care about bathrooms. I don't care about pronouns. I care about my property taxes being lower, which they're not. They're the highest in the country. Okay. I pay here in Hudson County. Okay. My property taxes are about $10,000. Okay. And I don't have a lot of real estate between me and my neighbor. Okay. It's an alleyway pretty much, or some piece of land. Okay. These are the things that Republicans have to hammer home. We know New Jersey is expensive. Really? Water, wet. I get it. Okay. But this is where the Republican Party, Justin, has to really engage in serious outreach to attract especially Latino voters who identify with conservative principles, with fiscal management, with the idea that, hey, family values, the importance of the nuclear family. And I said this to David Perrano a couple of weeks ago. He was one of the main people on the Murphy campaign. If people on the left and Democrats want to die on a hill with all this woke nonsense and climate hysteria, and again, he, she, pronouns, whatever, all this other nonsense. You want to die on a hill? God bless you. You do so at your own peril. This is where Republicans need to take advantage of the message and not just give out the message that, New Jersey is expensive. Really? Wow. I didn't know that. But focus on issues that matter to regular, everyday people. I don't think Republicans at the state level, Justin, do a good enough job. It might have worked in your county, in your race, and that's wonderful, and I'm happy. But statewide, I don't know if it's a formula that they want to follow or are following. Where am I wrong in my analysis?
I think a lot of what you say is very cogent, especially because when we're talking about the people that come to this state, and in particular Parsippany, referenced it before. Of that 30% that's foreign born, most of them come from India. And when you talk to them, you go to their door, you eat with them, as I have, you go to their temples. What do they care about? They care about education, which is the most important concern that they have. And then they care about their quality of life, which reminds them of why they chose Parsippany. And when you're talking to them and you're hearing the educational shift to this type of um, indoctrination, in the sense that you're training people to say things that just violate very basic precepts of human nature, it gave a lot of pause to a lot of people, and I think awoke a very large amount of people up to the fact of the importance of school board elections and what is being taught in our school. And I think it's something that's going to pave the way for future elections, particularly at the statewide level. Now, this is where I go into speculation, but I think school choice should be a very center plank issue that we run on, because it's an issue that resonates with African Americans, and 3/4 of African Americans support school choice. I know it's very popular with Latinos, and when they're being forced to learn things that they disagree with and feel go against what they would like to be taught, well, I think that's a really big issue for us, and it's an issue that, frankly, I don't think we spoke enough about in the previous election. And then when it comes to the outreach, I have done everything possible, and I will continue to do everything possible to build new bridges, to generate new alliances, and to welcome with open arms all of the people who haven't heard the Republican message before. The message of individual liberty, the message of the free market values, of being able to start your own business with government getting out of the way, being not an inhibitor to their progress in society, and rolling back the rules and regulations that stifle individual creativity and what really harm families to a very large degree in our state. And I think we have to get back to talking to those type of audiences that haven't heard this message before, because the Democrats do a better job of it. But in Parsippany, and my message to every single person is reach out to people that have voted Democrat, as I have. And when I'll tell you a short story, is when I was knocking on doors, even if they weren't on my app to go knock, if I saw my opponent's sign on the lawn, that was a cry for help for me to go knock on the door and bring in a convert. Because I tell people, we try so hard to win the argument, but we lose the convert in the end. And by going to people and having a willingness to engage with them in humility and explaining to them, this is what we stand for. This isn't what the media says the Republican Party is, but this is what I care about. And this is why I'm going to fight for you and speak for you, regardless of whether or not you vote for me or not. I will do everything possible to ensure that you and your family's future is a lot more brighter than it would be if our message wasn't being preached.
Councilman, well said there. Let's get back to Parsippany for a moment. And I'm kind of curious. I know that one of the things you were advocating for in your campaign were, the concerns for the schools in the district. And we all know that whether it was during the national debate last year, right around election time, just 5 hours south of Virginia, or talked about what was going on here in New Jersey with a very far left state legislature. Let me sort of put this bluntly to you and ask you, when we talk about boards of education, it's a problem statewide. And we've seen parents go to Board of Ed meetings, voice their displeasure about curriculum. Is there something right now in the Parsippany School District that concerns you about what's going to be taught at all grade levels? And how invested do you want to be in being a voice against, I'll be honest with you, and I know that many people on the left are saying, well, Fernando, you're just being hysterical. something like CRT, critical race theory, is only taught in law schools and universities. No, hello, I work in education, okay? You can camouflage CRT under a different name, and it's still the same curriculum. It's still sort of the same hateful message. It's still sort of like this toxic wokeism that, people on the left love to engage in. It's hysterical to me and also frightening that, not enough parents are waking up to this, but it seems like they are. I can't speak for Parsippany. I can see it in other townships. What are you seeing out of parents right now in the school district that it gives you some sense of optimism that, they're not going to let their kids be indoctrinated like we are seeing in high schools and even in colleges all across the state of New Jersey?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. When it comes to our local school board here in Parsippany, I know they do a great job. All the members have a great reputation. We actually had a new one get elected, Sheethel Abraham, who was very outspoken by some of the things that she saw going on in the news, and she was successful in that regard. And we didn't have the type of firestorm that Randolph had in a neighboring town, where they tried to remove Christopher Columbus from the calendar. And you saw this type of mobilization and this awakening on people that were Democrats, people that were independent, that there's something seriously wrong when Christopher Columbus is taken off the calendar, Martin Luther King is taken off the calendar, and then it becomes something where we're not even celebrating what makes us who we are anymore. And I think everybody saw that. And that's in part why I think in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin was very successful, because it was a center piece of the campaign. And look how that turned out. So I know that in Parsippany, I think they're looking forward towards the end of the mask mandate. To my knowledge, there is no consideration of CRT here, and I, in my estimation, I think they would be against it if that was put to a vote for them.
Councilman, well said there. And as a matter of fact, I actually covered that story last year as it pertained to the Columbus Day fiasco. And it's interesting to me because during my monologue, I actually got a good amount of traffic on it. But, as a history professor, I always laugh when I talk to my progressive friends, or regressive friends, as I like to call them, or those on the left, where they just get outraged about things like this. And you know what? I always sort of go back to the bread and butter issues, where it's like, oh, you're so concerned about something that happened 500 years ago. Well, here's a news flash. Okay. Do you think the Vikings in Northern Europe sat around a table and said, well, listen, we're going to appropriate land this way, and you get this land, I get that land? Well, guess what? No, they slaughtered each other. Do you think tribes in Africa were sitting around trying to appropriate, pieces of land? Of course not. No one's saying it's correct. What do you think happened in the Americas? What do you think happened in indigenous populations in Latin America, in the Americas in general? It's happened. I'm sorry it did, okay? No one's condoning it. But you're bitching and moaning 600, 700 years later doesn't do anything for me. This sort of virtue signaling, Councilman, drives me crazy when it comes to the left in New Jersey, whether it's in municipal races, whether it's, people writing for municipal tap-intos or other publications, or at the state level. It's like, focus on, like, no offense, we get what happened with Christopher Columbus and others. Okay, we get what happened where people migrated across continents and engaged in that sort of, unfortunate, brutal behavior. It happened. Okay, let's get over it. Let's move on. Being triggered by statues and by holidays, Councilman, just seems like the epitome of just juvenile behavior, where you're just not getting the big picture. The big picture right now is how to make New Jersey affordable. How do we make sure there isn't gross mismanagement in our municipalities, that there isn't wasteful spending in our boards of education? That's what people should worry about. And it's crazy to me that grown adults, okay, some with law degrees, some with graduate degrees, fail to comprehend this. It almost makes me wonder, like, did you sleep through world history? Did you sleep through high school biology? It drives me crazy how some on the left, Councilman, can be so oblivious. And you, as an elected official, maybe at the local level, that has to even drive you even crazier.
Yeah, look, it's a serious problem when people are graduating high school and college and they don't know what a credit score is. They don't know the first way to start a business. They don't know what's good debt versus bad debt. They don't understand how to balance a checkbook. And I'm not blaming them, but it's a larger testament to the fact that our educational system has been going in the wrong direction when we're spending more time talking about the past and not talking about the future for people and how that future can be if they learn those essential values about good financial housekeeping, about the right way to interview and get a job. For me personally, I'm in sales. That's always been my profession and background, but nobody taught me sales in all of education. And I would say, as a personal story, sales has been the biggest part of my success, is learning how to sell, because it applies to politics as much as it applies to anything else, is selling people on your vision and your value system and why you are right. And I think that's a really big thing that's missing as we see educational scores from ACT and SATs are declining, but the focus on extraneous subjects that have no bearing on where one goes in society, to me, is not something that's desirable.
Councilman, again, sort of staying within the township of Parsippany, I know that, and a shout out to the Parsippany Focus for their story. I know that you had a very successful fundraiser last week at apparently Bruno's Italian Bistro. Looked at some of the Yelp reviews, and pretty good restaurants. So for everyone out there, make sure you check out Bruno's Italian Bistro. It seemed like, again, it was sort of the typical, schmoozing and networking that you need to do when it comes to not just campaign season, but when you are an elected official now. We're seeing sort of this not seismic shift within the party, within Morris County specifically, but again, the census, as we alluded to, obviously is breaking up some districts. We know it might have an impact on the legislative seats within the nearby, legislative districts near you. Are you going to feel compelled, again, as a sitting councilman, to get involved in legislative races in 2023 and also even in 2022 when it comes to congressional races and those that will be looking to hopefully maybe get Republicans elected? Are you looking to get involved, or are you just focusing on Parsippany right now?
My sole focus is to serve the residents of Parsippany, to be the best councilman I can be. If there are candidates that are going to help me help the township, then I'll always do what is possible to ensure that they're successful. In the current representatives that we have for Assembly, Jay Weber and Christian Bronco, and then Senator Panaccio, I think we have a great team that's very cohesive. And they both, Christian is the newcomer, but both of them have a long track record of ensuring that Parsippany has every single form of representation and access to Trenton. And I was very fortunate to receive an invitation by Senator Panaccio about 3 weeks ago to accompany them to Trenton, so I could really understand how we could work together to ensure that Parsippany has all the support it needs from Trenton.
Shout out to State Senator Joe Panaccio. He's been a regular on this show. He's appeared a few times. Shout out to him, hoping to have him on later this spring. A great elected official, to say the very least.
And I don't think Christian has been on your show, so I believe you need to have him on your show.
I'll try to get him on again. It's all about scheduling, as you know. It's about sort of balancing those calendars and schedules, as they say. Councilman, let me ask you this, because it's something that really, again, and we know that State Senator Panaccio, along with State Senator Testa, coincidentally, who is my guest next week here on the show, next Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern time, they've been those legislators that have really been loud voices in Trenton when it comes to, speaking up against the governor and mandates and masking and everything else that, to be honest, for many, many months now have killed New Jersey businesses, specifically restaurants, other businesses as well. When you look at the commitment of State Senator Panaccio, again, I'm part of my day job is grading people. What grade would you give State Senator Panaccio in terms of his activism and, quite frankly, his tenacity in Trenton to stand up for his constituents?
I would give him an A+. And as a professor, I think A plus is still given out today, or we do not offend people by giving
Well, we can't.
the highest
Well,
grade.
listen, we have to try not to offend people with pluses and minuses. It's either A, B pluses, or Bs. I don't know. If you're an A, you're an A. But I
I
agree
give
with
him
you.
an A with a red pen.
I agree with you. He deserves an A plus for sure.
Yeah, with the red pen.
That's right. Yes. Listen, the dollar store by me. Believe me, I stock up on red pens for sure. Folks, it's 6:50 here on the East Coast, here on Facebook Live via streaming, and also on Jersey First YouTube page. Folks, he is Councilman Justin Musella out of the township of Parsippany, our guest here this week on Real Talk. Councilman, as we continue in 2022, I know you outlined what you're looking to do on the council itself and certainly what areas to focus on. Let's be honest. Are there some things that are unattainable? I mean, it sounds great during campaign season. I'm not accusing you or anyone of anything. But what I'm saying is now that you're sitting on the council, again, you're rolling up your sleeves. As they say, you're looking at the books. Now it's your time to legislate. Are there some things that are going to take a little bit longer than you would like to get accomplished? Or is it just sort of a case-by-case basis?
So when it comes to legislating, there's short-term goals and then there's long-term goals. And as a legislator, I need to have two other members of council to agree with me in order to get an ordinance in effect, and then signed by the mayor in some instances. So for me, it's a new set of skill set of where you're looking at having those personal relationships, understanding what's important to my other council people who represent different types of Parsippany residents than maybe myself, and they have their own base of supporters. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. But the short-term goals, like office hours, like in inspiring others to have a sense of volunteerism and community spirit, for instance, doing regular trash pickups, helping with the removal of weeds, anything possible to beautify our town. Those are things that it doesn't cost any taxpayer to do. I don't need to pass a law to ask other people to come volunteer on a Saturday and let's clean up the highway. Let's make our town an attractive place to come in, especially for the people that drive in and out of our town each and every single day. And then there might be those longer term policy goals, like, for instance, rescinding compliance with the Highlands Act, which is a state mandate. It's basically a board of people that answer to the governors that tell Parsippany what it can and can't do with its land. And I feel that since we're closest to the issue, I believe power should be in our hands to determine our destiny. Like the opposition to the plastic bag ban, that was a part of my platform when I ran, because it imposed the harshest costs on small businesses who, if they didn't want to pass the costs on to their customers, then they had to absorb that cost. And I think it was not something that many residents found appealing. And it should be up to them to decide what they do and what they don't do. So those longer term policy goals are going to take time, and it's about persuading my other council members to see it the same way that I do, along with support from the mayor's office. But the changes that come gradually and the changes that come overnight are really a case by case basis.
Councilman, we're going to leave it right there. Obviously, a great policy discussion with you. But before I let you go, I think our audience should learn a little bit more about Councilman Justin Musella, the guy, not the legislator, not the salesman, as they say, right, working in the private sector. Let's sort of, a little word association here to kind of get to know the councilman here. So I'm going to run some stuff by you. First answer that comes to mind, okay? Yankees or Mets?
We'll go with Mets.
Okay. Knicks or Nets?
We'll go with the Knicks.
Okay. DC Comics or the MCU?
Marvel all the way.
All right. Good stuff. Steak or chicken?
Well, there's one of my favorite things is a tomahawk steak. So we're going with steak.
Okay. Walmart or Target?
Walmart.
WWE or UFC?
Well, I think the UFC does a great job of showing what happens when real athletes fight until the bitter end with being in that bloody arena. And it's always been something, it's probably my favorite sport to watch.
Okay. The Shakira J-Lo halftime show or Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg or Mary J. Blige halftime show?
Can I say none of the above?
Wow. Okay. Which one did you like?
Well, I really didn't care for either show. I thought Bruno Mars's show was really good, the one that I remember. Rolling Stones was great, but I didn't really care for either of those two shows.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. One last one here. Favorite U.S. president?
We're gonna go with Ronald Reagan.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. The Gipper. God rest his soul. Councilman, I want to thank you for your time here tonight. I think a very illuminating interview for our audience here. Certainly a guy on the rise as far as I'm concerned in Republican politics, not just in Morris County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. He's a name that you want to keep an eye out for the foreseeable future. So I want to thank you for your time, Councilman, for coming on here and for really your belief and support in Real Talk with Fernando Uribe right here now in partnership with Jersey First. I can't thank you enough for supporting the show, for being a fan of the show, and really for wanting to come on and have a good policy discussion of what's going on, not just locally, but also in statewide politics as well. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'll give you the last word, Councilman.
Well, thank you, Fernando, for what you do to help people like myself. I know that when I ran, having the ability to come on was very helpful to me. I think you asked some really thought-provoking questions, and I would encourage everybody and anybody to listen to you because the wisdom and the clarity that you have with what's going on at our state level and being able to make it relevant to a local office holder such as myself is a job well done by you, sir.
Well, Councilman, that's really kind of you. I really appreciate that. And go enjoy Valentine's Day with the missus there. And I wish you both the best of luck. Congratulations again on your engagement. And let me know when that wedding date is, okay?
You got it. Sounds good.
Appreciate it, folks. He is Parsippany-Troy Hills Councilman Justin Musella here. Join us on Real Talk via Jersey First. Councilman, we'll talk to you again soon here on Jersey First.
Thank you, Fernando. Bye now.
Folks, what a great episode here tonight with Councilman Justin Musella. And folks, again, these are the type of guests that I take a lot of pride in wanting to bring on this show and to talk about the issues that matter, not just about statewide politics, folks, but about local municipalities. Because at the end of the day, all politics is local. And when we get to see just energetic, passionate, good-hearted, and well-intentioned people like Justin Musella running for local office, I think it says a lot about how we perceive the political climate right now and whether or not we want good people involved. And certainly, I think without equivocation, Justin Musella checks off a lot of boxes for us, especially those of us that identify as conservatives, right-leaning, or even just Republicans overall. Good guy to definitely watch for the foreseeable future here in the state of New Jersey, and more importantly, obviously, in the municipality of Parsippany in Morris County. Well, that's our show for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you're just tuning in live right here, just a couple minutes before the top of the hour here on the East Coast, folks, I want to thank you all for joining us here on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on YouTube via Jersey First. And I can't say enough, ladies and gentlemen, really about how proud I am to be a part of the Jersey First team. A shout out to Elizabeth Nader, fellow journalist and the host of the Nader Narrative. You definitely want to check her amazing show on Jersey First later in the week here, obviously on their Facebook page and, of course, also on YouTube and at jerseyfirst.org. Once again, that's jersey1st.org. And certainly we have great content coming up for the rest of 2022 and the foreseeable future. Folks, again, you can check out this episode in its entirety on my Facebook wall in just a few minutes after I go off the air. And so you can check it out on the Jersey First YouTube page sometime later today. And, of course, on the Jersey First site as well. Folks, I can't say enough about what we're doing here with Jersey First in 2022. We'll keep asking the questions that you want answers to and getting guests that you want to hear from each and every week on Facebook Live and also on Jersey First. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there, to all the couples enjoying tonight. Happy Valentine's Day to my mother, my aunt, and my best friends out there, and certainly wonderful ladies who do a good job of humbling me. I know, folks, it's tough to keep me humble, but they do a pretty good job of it. So happy Valentine's Day to them and to everyone out there in general, folks. It's just a day to show love to everyone that's important to you. Do that and make sure that you let everyone know how much you care for them, not just on Valentine's Day, but every day of the year. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always real talk right here with Jersey First. I am New Jersey's premier journalist, Top 100 Latino, via the Latino Spirit online magazine, of course, the sworn enemy of all the toxic progressives, social justice clowns, latte liberals, and all the woke fools throughout the state of New Jersey. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, let's go Rutgers, and I'll see you next week here at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for the latest edition of Real Talk via Jersey First. Have a great night, everyone.